Hello, Repony, and welcome back to My Little Pony What Works. Today we have an Apple Bloom Applejack episode from Somepony to Watch Over Me, brought to us from new writer Scott Sonneborn. Let's see how he does. The Apple family is in charge of making deliveries to certain parts of Equestria. Due to the difficulty of some of the deliveries, Apple Bloom gets to stay home alone to work on the chores. However, Applejack gets worked up on the idea that Apple Bloom will end up hurting herself, so she ends up playing helicopter mom throughout the episode. Where do I start with this episode's problems? Well, I guess I can say one positive thing about the story. It's well paced. Yeah, I have no problems with the episode structure. The rest of the story, in particular the characters, I have a problem with. The one thing I can talk about that gets on my nerves a lot is Applejack's behavior. I can understand an older sibling being protective of a younger sibling for safety reasons, but you need proportionate response. The thing that sets Applejack's behavior in motion, Apple Bloom spills cold soup on herself, which results in Applejack doing an overhaul in the house. Overreaction is an understatement. This is babying. You know, throughout this season, I was starting to gain a newfound respect for Applejack, as with episodes such as Bats, Philly Vanilli, and Simple Ways. Until this episode reminded me of her behavior in Apple Family Reunion, and it's back down to the bottom. Now, Apple Bloom on the other hoof, I really enjoyed. She acted responsible, rational, and had a couple of funny lines. Oh, sweet Celestia, will you stop reminding me of worst episode? And finally, we have the Chimera, and wow, was this a letdown. I can honestly describe the monster by quoting Nash from Radio Dead Air. Do you remember that one guy or girl from high school being really hot until they opened their mouth? Yeah, that's the Chimera in a nutshell. Really cool concept and design, but its intimidation is destroyed when it had to talk. We could also attribute its unscary factor to the fact the build-up was non-existent. So yeah, story's a bit of a dud, but what about the rest? Honestly, I dug the technical side, for the most part. The harsh angles of some scenes at the beginning had a really tense feeling, but there were two scenes that bugged me. One is the opening scene with the shadows. It was impressive that they pulled something off like this, but the comedic effect of the scene is ruined by the reaction plus the shadow. To be honest, lack of shadow would have worked better. The other issue I have is the tone shift. Don't get me wrong, it's well designed, but the lead up to it was jarring. At the beginning, Granny Smith only said it was a difficult trek. She said nothing about a fire swamp and the threats of rodents of unusual size. It feels like a dark tone shift was put here just because they could. Music on the other hand was well done. Can't say anything more than that. Okay, time for a new concept I'd like to introduce to you all. The Hearts and Hooves Threshold. This is something I came up with to describe over-the-top humor in the show. If the show demonstrates over-the-top and dumb humor but the plot isn't taken seriously, it becomes comical. But if the story presents over-the-top and dumb humor but the plot is taken seriously, it becomes annoying. Guess which one Somepony to Watch Over Me falls under? The story tries to take a serious plot and add in silly, borderline stupid humor. It's not funny, it's aggravating. The last time I had an issue with the moral itself and not how it was written was One Bad Apple. The primary reason was I found it contradictory, as with the irony statement. Somepony Watch Over Me does the same thing. At first, Applejack realizes how frenetic she was acting, checking up on Apple Bloom every 5 seconds. But at the bayou, she said if Apple Bloom didn't sneak out, she wouldn't have realized she was acting so dumb. So it's not that someone had to tell her she was acting stupid, but she contradicted herself in saying that it was Apple Bloom's actions that made her realize she was acting stupid. I don't know how to respond to that other than, congratulations, you just hit every point on the bad MLP episode checklist. Also, Littlest Pet Shop pulled this off better. So, let's recap. The story is one giant contradiction after the next, not to mention hitting every note of the bad MLP episode checklist. Applejack is out of character considering past relations with Apple Bloom. It's technically impressive, if a bit jarring at times. While the episode had one or two jokes that worked, most of the attempted humor came across as annoying rather than funny. And finally, the moral is the cherry on top of this contradicted mess, leading to a final score of 1 star out of 4. While I don't consider this to be Rainbow Falls levels of insulting, this is one episode revolving around siblings I won't be rewatching anytime soon. Now, Maud Pie, on the other hand, could be a genuine surprise. Until then, I'm the voice of reason, and I'll see you next time.